Hello students. Earlier in this chapter, we spoke about what are life processes, we spoke about nutrition, we understood digestion. Now moving ahead, let us talk about how there is breakdown of food in presence of oxygen to derive energy in the form of ATP. So let us talk about respiration. The process of oxidation of glucose to release energy in the form of ATP is called as respiration. Now, since this is happening at a cellular level, we call it as cellular respiration. The respiration process occurs in 3 steps called glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and electron transport system. Now, at the end of this process, we will see that there is energy released in the form of ATP, which is stored in the mitochondria. We see that the process of glycolysis is happening in the cytoplasm, whereas Krebs cycle and electron transport system will happen in the mitochondria. The respiration process occurs in 2 types. If there is presence of oxygen, we call it aerobic respiration. If there is absence of oxygen, we call it anaerobic respiration. The first step of respiration is always breakdown of glucose molecules into a 3-carbon molecule called as pyruvate with release of energy. And this entire process is happening inside the cytoplasm. Now, in diverse organisms, we see that there are different methods for process of respiration. So, if we take yeast for example, it shows fermentation process which is actually anaerobic in nature. So, here we see that the pyruvate is broken down further into ethanol, carbon dioxide with release of energy. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever experienced muscle cramps? I guess everybody would have. So when a person is doing any kind of a physical activity which is extremely vigorous, the body requirement of energy also increases. So to actually compensate the energy requirement, we see that the stored glucose in our body is broken down to form lactic acid and releases energy. Now this process is happening in absence of oxygen. So it is anaerobic in nature. Generally, if we see, there is breakdown of our glucose inside the mitochondria in presence of oxygen. And this will release carbon dioxide, water and energy. And this energy is converted into ATP and is stored in the mitochondria. Aerobic respiration depends on oxygen. So organisms ensure that they always maintain the supply of oxygen. So if we see lower organisms, they generally do not have a well-developed respiratory system or any structure present. So they have different mechanisms to ensure that there is continuous oxygen supply. For example, if we see earthworm, they have a moist surface through which there is simple diffusion of gases. If we talk about insects, they show presence of tracheal system for exchange of gases. If we talk about fishes, they have gills for exchange of gases. And talking about frog, when they are present on the land, they show presence of lungs for exchange of gases. Inside the water, if we take the tadpole larvae, it has gills, or else they will also show respiration through their moist skin. Whereas talking about complex organisms like birds and human beings, we will see that they show presence of lungs. The oxidation of glucose to generate energy is called respiration. Cellular respiration is completed in 3 steps called glycolysis, Krebs cycle and electron transport system. Glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm, while Krebs cycle and electron transport system happens in the mitochondria. Respiration in presence of oxygen is called aerobic respiration, and in absence of oxygen is called anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration pathway depends on oxygen. Hence, organisms ensure to have sufficient supply of oxygen to perform metabolic activities of the cell. In lower animals, exchange of gases is through simple diffusion through the moist skin as seen in earthworms, whereas insects have tracheal systems, fishes have gills, frogs use skin and water and lungs when on land. Complex organisms have lungs for exchange of gases.